work groups, do we have teacher involvement in any of that, the CTA, or just regular teacher involvement with all of these work groups?
Yes, this is certainly allowable. The heads of those work groups are typically regionals and instructionals, and they've been given direction to include principals. They have a very diverse group of people on those work groups, and so I know we have a couple now around graduation items, and so yes, those principals and others are creating committees of diverse groups of people to work through them. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Fenoy, that does include teachers also, right?
As I understand it, yes. But we'll check on that to make sure. If not, we'll get them in there.
All right, any more comments, Mr. Burke? Thank you, Mr. Burke. What happened to your beard, Mr. Burke? I was going to have company here, so.
There's a whole story behind that, but basically Claudia Shea told me to clean up my act, I think. So,
but I never listened. Dr. Robinson, I'm sorry. I think you did have your hand up. You have another question for me?
Yeah, it's not a question. It's really two comments. So one, in response to Mrs. Andrews' question about teachers being involved. So in my magical world, then the work group that is working on these, what I call the grade level essentials, the narrowed curriculum, would have teachers, especially the teachers who would be receiving the students. So for example, if you're doing the second grade social studies essentials, then the third grade teachers need to look in on that and make sure that it's what they know the children need to come to third grade to be successful, right? As the narrowed focus on what they need. But the other thing in terms of this, the work group that's looking at what I'm labeling as the restructuring of the delivery of education model, is I hope that we are looking at the children that we purport to serve and educate, and the adults that educate and serve them, and what their needs are, because we know that we have been missing children. We have significant numbers of children that we have failed to engage, and so I hope that we will not try to create a new delivery model that's just walking down the middle again, but that it is working specifically to meet the needs of like each group of children, so that there's a place for everybody, including those who don't want their children to come back, who want to do virtual education. And I would suggest that maybe we sometime in the relatively near future have a workshop on our Palm Beach Virtual. I want to thank the staff at Palm Beach Virtual for walking me through the comparisons and contrasting of what they do to what we are doing on this humongous scale all of a sudden. And I could just tell you that, at least in my mind, Palm Beach Virtual is good for some, but of course not all, right? And so I just want us to, I'm going to use a cliche as much as I hate cliches, and begin with the end in mind. And the end is that we actively engage each student to be an active participant in their own education, so that they could be successful not only academically, but socially and behaviorally and every other way. But I don't want us just redeveloping the system for the system. I want us to redevelop it, recreate it for the children.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. I think this experience has proven that our district is the premier education provider in Palm Beach County. And I think our enrollment's going to be very critical to the budget as well. And this is an opportunity to hopefully hang on to the students we have and bring in more students out of private school, home education, charter, wherever. Again, the superintendent's back now. I didn't see him for a second, but I know he's tasked us with that, what the future is going to look like in education and how we make that work for everyone. So, but we're best positioned to do it, right? And for our county, so it's our job to do.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Burke? Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes. Before Julian Rico, our General Counsel, proceeds, I want to share with the board how, in short order, we already had a really good working relationship, but we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for the Office of General Counsel and that entire team the level of synergy is amazing and it's getting better and better every day. So, Julianne and I have a lot of private laughs and a lot of private cries dealing with the board and everything else we deal with. But I just had to give her that public shout out because we have done a lot because of her and her team. Always thinking about worst case scenario. So it helps us. Julianne?
You guys actually cry when you're dealing with the board?
Yeah, but out of happiness. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for that, Dr. Fenoy. And it's reciprocal. We have worked hand in glove in this brief presentation. We'll outline some of the areas that we have worked together and continue to work together. This report is really based on, a date of March 19th, which is when the Office of General Counsel went 100% remote. And we started from day one to begin developing some of the reports that you all have recently received with respect to planning the work and executing the work. So our work plan was really based and developed on structure and accountability for our legal services, but also, as Dr. Fenoy said, to support the ongoing work and the incredible job that the district has been able to do, and all of the reactivity that had to occur when this crisis came upon us. So all of our employees are functioning, fully engaged to assure that the work is effective, efficient, and responsive. And we essentially created a working paradigm within our department to look at 3 buckets of work. One is COVID-19 response issues. The other is the ongoing work, because we still have the ongoing work of the legal services that are required of the district. Next slide. And also we began to look at some initiatives that became clear to us that we might be able to tackle as it has been enlightened by this crisis. So we began a tracking process to track the emergency executive orders, regulations, and other legislation from numerous agencies and jurisdictions, which were ever evolving. I mean, you could continue to hear that recurring theme, and we're going to continue to track those and process through those and provide you with those updates. We also developed a process to identify decision points and systems, and that's sort of the first bubble up, or where some of these decisions bubble up. And they then interface with the working groups that you've heard so much about during these various presentations. And so we are also processing a tracking mechanism for our own work. So all of the assignments relative to the COVID related issues have been tracked in one sort of working document so that we can keep track of those for future reference. We have been working closely with the district teams and providing rapid response to all of these challenges: HR, business operations, governance, much of the work of getting these virtual board meetings, advisory board meetings, developing special policies, and just the process for bringing this stuff forward has gone on in the governance group. We have a working academics group, and then litigation, claims, and risk avoidance. We've collaborated with other professional partners. There are just lots and lots and lots of listservs and calls and conference calls that we have engaged in, including the Florida School Board Attorneys Association, Council of School Attorneys, for which I serve as an executive officer, National School Board Association, and the like. So we also have been in communication with private and public sector attorneys and colleagues. Many of the private law firms have provided ongoing information about how they see and react to some of these ongoing issues, and have provided that information as a courtesy, and we have certainly appreciated that. So with our ongoing work, we continue to review and handle ongoing matters in the normal course of business, including contracts. All of these data points are continuing to evolve. Duty calls, these are calls from the district administrators and principals. IEP hearings have gone on through these Google methodologies and otherwise. Policy development with our normal policy development, due process hearings, state complaints, ESC team leader meetings, and the like. With respect to litigation, it's been an interesting challenge because the courts have also had to react. The various courts, including DOA, federal and state courts, have all had to react and issue their own executive orders, all of which continue to change as we progressed through the last several weeks. And we have conducted at least one DOA hearing virtually. Court hearings have been ratcheted down to basically essential type hearings, but that does not mean that our ongoing cases have stopped. The courts still expect discovery to go on. Most deadlines have not been extended, and so the Office of General Counsel has continued with the litigation team to move forward with over 11 trials in preparation that are scheduled to take place between April and July of 2020. We've also created a new process for receiving lawsuits and service of process and subpoenas due to the closure of the buildings. And so we had to create a new process for administering that. So our federal and state litigation activity, we've had over 18 hearings, 17 depositions, 6 mediations. We've filed over 150 pleadings. We've had 8 new cases, 56 new claims, 4 settlements, and I'm happy to report we won 2 major appeals in this last month, one of which ruling just came out today. And those are appeals that had significant exposure and interest of not only our district, but statewide impact. So we've had quite a bit of activity in regard to the personnel specific matters. You'll hear from not only when you heard from Mr. Burke, but Dr. LaCava over all of the challenges and ever evolving issues as respecting our workforce. So this is just a small list of the issues that have been we've been dealing with, reviewing, and working on with respect to our employees, and we will continue working with our district team to come up with and provide proper and compliant systems. Business interruptions have been, a continued theme, not only with respect to our district, but across the board in all areas of business, public and private. Business interruptions, have had to be addressed in a very new and unique way. So our staff has been working again hand in hand to try to address how we deal with business interruptions, projects, contracts, events, and the like. And so we continue to work through that. We also have had an opportunity to address some special initiatives. So we're working through a new process for the contract review, submittal, and legal review process throughout the district. So this has given us an opportunity to really require an automated contract preparation, review, and sign-off procedure because there's no one there to receive an actual physical contract anymore. So this has given us a great opportunity to do that. And our charter school attorneys have worked and continue to initiate with the district charter school department an overview of the policies and procedures. And this includes the finance department of things that really needed to be looked at in a global and specific strategic way with respect to our charter school policies. So that's ongoing. So with that, again, I would just like to commend the district for reacting, implementing, and really working through all of the challenges. Our counterparts write to us every single day about, the challenges their districts are facing. And I think we've met these in an incredible way, and we continue to do so. Thank you.
Board members, any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Rico. I think I've talked to you more in the last week than I talked to you in the last 6 years, but thank you for all that you've been doing to keep us from getting into trouble. Mr. Superintendent?
At this time, I'll turn it over to our Chief of Human Resources, Dr. LaCava, for his division's update. And again, another team that's working hard. I mean, we got to keep the business of the district running, but we also have to be mindful of the realities of our employees. And so they've really been sensitive around that and really trying to work through it. I've even seen I didn't think I'd see the day where the Office of General Counsel and Human Resources would work so closely, but they sure are now. So at this time, I turn it over to Dr. LaCava.
Good afternoon, School Board Chair Barbieri, School Board and Superintendent. I just want to echo that of the superintendent, but it just hasn't been legal. It's been, the finance department, and it's been, the academics department, and anybody that we've picked up the phone to ask questions. They've been so flexible, and they've been so quick to really help us, with so many projects that are going on. And as you may know, over the last month, the Division of Human Resource has changed the way we do work. And a lot of our employees in the beginning struggled with working remotely. And we've had to work through that as well. And one more piece that has been very important, and I just want to make sure everybody understands, is that I've been reaching out to other chiefs, superintendents, chief of human resources, and I've been part of a lot of meetings, just like many board members have, Counsel and Chiefs for Change, and you name it, and they're all having similar issues, right? They're all having rapid changes, and they're all going through this process that we're doing so well. And a lot of people are really looking up to us to share those processes that all these teams have put together as well. But through the challenges, our team has adapted well, and I truly believe they're very, very flexible. So let me just share a couple of things in regards to what HR is doing up to this point. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that Mike and Julianne have said because they're so entangled, right? Families first, and a lot of the financing pieces that are really impacting HR. But it's been business as usual in HR. Our folks are moving the work forward. We're meeting timelines, some controversial, some we've had to be flexible with. The professional development and leadership, they're supporting leaders throughout the district. Professional development has rolled up their sleeves and working with the professional development of teachers and working through this remote environment as well. Carlene Millen, the fearless leader of the professional growth, is also working her magic through the work, right? And she's doing a lot of the pieces that need to move forward, such as the administrative assistance resources that the board received, and onboarding, all these pieces of work that we just can't stop because we have a major pandemic. And so they've been working through that as well. Also, our recruitment and retention department and our HR partners are helping our principals understand this hiring freeze that Mike mentioned earlier in his slides. This is a very difficult time for them because they haven't seen something like this since 2008. But we are answering questions. We're supporting them. We're walking, we're walking these challenges with them, and we're just going to continue to have these conversations with them through the future of hiring as well. Also, our reappointment process, something that we have worked closely with legal, and we have worked closely with a lot of individuals. We are moving that work along as well. And an FAQ is going to be pushed out to principals and board members and everybody so they understand and have the answers, and we can be as transparent as possible during these challenging times as well. So also in collaboration with labor and legal, we've created an emergency predetermination process. It has really built in some flexibility for our employees in regards to our disciplining issues, and meetings with board members have been scheduled. And I know some of you already accepted to kind of go through that document as well. In addition, our division is working through the myriad of information that is coming from the Department of Education around teacher evaluations, the certification. There's a lot of deadlines, a lot of language change. But one thing that I want to push out and bring up is that a lot of our teachers are benefiting from that teacher certification examination where our state has waived the fees. So that's a great thing. Great and bad, right? Because the great thing is a lot of people are moving forward with getting these tests, and now we have a backup as well. So the state's going to have to work through that piece as well. Also, the payroll piece that Mike mentioned earlier. Did I drop off? Yep, there you go. I'm back. Mike mentioned earlier that our payroll is working through all these processes, salary agreements, payroll. We're making sure that everybody's getting paid on time, especially this is the last thing that they need during these challenging times, not to have a on-time paycheck. So kudos to them as well. Also, our division is also conducting environmental scans of the district, of our department, just to really get a grasp of what it's going to look like, in a couple of months, in a year, and 3 years from now. And so we're being very diligent in understanding that and really painting the picture for our leaders as well as schools. And finally, in order for us to start looking at how we get back to a normal work schedule, we are working with legal and other departments, risk and transportation and operations, on how do we address the development of protocols to get us going back to work, and also dealing with this future pandemic and maybe another one in the future, right? And hopefully not, but we want to make sure that we have the answers when employees want to get back to work or they're being asked to go back to work, and we have the right protocols in place for that as well. So with that, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have challenges that are going to continue to arise, and HR is going to be ready. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and I think the slide's already there, is that we have a group of individuals that have been really helping out the district. And this is our HR Customer Care Center. And I wanted to end in a positive note. These individuals, along with the Department of Communication, have been working collaboratively really to answer questions of our staff in these uncertain times. And this branch of HR has put in place to ensure that staff members get the answers to many issues and concerns. We've had over 2,500 calls so far since March 15th, and that's huge for a team of 5. And they're working from home, they're answering calls, they're emailing back, and a lot of these concerns are around substitutes, unemployment, job status, contract questions, and many, many, many more issues. Again, for the staff that's listening, teachers and people that are listening to this virtual board meeting, if you have questions or if you have concerns, the number you can call is 434-8777. Again, 434-8777, and we'll be there to answer those questions. Again, I want to thank Dr. Fenoy, Mr. Barbieri, and the school board for its leadership during these challenging times. So with that, I'll open up to questions regarding anything that I've said in my presentation.
Mrs. McQuinn, then Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. Dr. LaCava, through the superintendent, in terms of the reappointment process, and I am not referring to not referring to classroom teachers. Nobody has a clue what's going to happen with students returning. I think our students will return and will pick up even more. That's not just a hope, it's what I really think. But if I remember correctly from the old days, the reappointment, I'm referring to administrative positions, whether they're non-school-based administrative positions. Does it still say that you will be reappointed to the same or similar position? I'm really looking to whether, if we are in dire financial straits, are we promising now that all positions non-school based will be reappointed?
So that's a great question. So legal, Mike, various portions of HR are looking into this right now, balancing what could happen with our budget. How do we address this, the multiple and the diverse contracts that we have? So we've invited Vicky and legal to look into this. So we should have more answers in the coming days. We've been looking at this for about a week and a half. So this is a very complicated one, and I'm not going to lie about it. I'm going to be as transparent as possible because we just don't know enough to really give out answers at this moment, but we are looking at that.
All right, Mrs. Andrews.
My question ties into the voluntary transfer period. I'm sure that we're already in it. It could be over with right now. And how is our work with the Classroom Teachers Association based on all of these uncertainties? Everything's fluid right now, and we don't know. We have a hiring freeze on. I'm sure we may need to hire people. We may not. What are we doing in collaborations with them and talking through ideas, looking at what's going on in other districts? What are we doing?
Yep, great question, Mrs. Andrews. I just left Mr. Katz a voicemail yesterday in regards to a question that he had, and he's been reaching out to Miss Vicky Parr. And I can tell you our communication needs to continue to improve with the CTA. I think that they have a lot of ideas that they can share in regards to whether it's a voluntary process or whether it's class size amendment. But we are reaching out to him and various unions as well. In regards to the voluntary transfer period, it's still open to Friday, May 8th. So we're still continuing to place those individuals. I think we only have about 57 teachers that are in the voluntary transfer process or pool. But you're absolutely right. We need to continue to reach across and work with our unions and work with Mr. Katz and just kind of share ideas and see what other ideas they have as well. But I'll get back to you in regards to once I've had more opportunities to share and vet and start thinking about this with you, Mrs. Andrews, and the board.
Thank you. Ms. Andrews, you have any follow-up on that one?
Yes, I did have a follow-up.
Right.
I did have a follow-up. Yeah, I do want you to look at the Council of Great City Schools and look at many of the other districts, similar size like us, from the state of Florida as well as across the nation. They have actually plugged in agreements as it relates to professional development, the hiring process, and so on. So there are some models already out there, and you could very well check with some of those folks to see how it's working.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Breaux?
Thank you. And this is, hear me okay? Some feedback there. Do you hear me?
It's working.
Oh, okay. So this is the time of year where we're quickly nearing where we celebrate our retirees. And so along the same lines as we're looking at graduations, I hope that you are looking at a way that we can celebrate those employees who are leaving our district. I think it's important that we recognize them. So that would be my ask. I know you have a lot on your plate, but we do need to find a way to recognize them.
We are actually have already started a work group on that. I wouldn't call it a work group officially. It's just a group of individuals that are looking into that. And we're trying to see if we mirror the retirement to what we're doing with students. So we have some alignment and, bringing out their pictures, celebrating that. So that's just one idea of many, but we are looking at that last week. So we should have something soon.
All right. Are there any other questions from any board members? Dr. Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you. This is nothing unique to this crisis we're in, but have we figured out how to fix that issue with the background checks so that we don't offer people positions before the background check?
Yes. Well, we haven't solved it all. The first thing that we did is that we reduced it from 1 year. If they falsify or they may not understand the application, we've gone from 1 year to 60 days now where they can reapply. The second thing that we're doing is we're going to an electronic application, and there's going to be a video that explains to them specifically what they need to do, why we're requiring this. So the script is being worked through. And then there's some other pieces that we are working through to make sure that this fits and we have less people, not filling out the application correctly. The second part of that question is we're working with our recruitment and retention side, which is our technicians, and also our Vicky and labor to make sure that when a person is given the word evades me, but an offer. Thank you very much. Given an offer, the criminal background check and the offer coincide, so there's no overlap. They don't start first, and we have to pull them out. So those are the things that we've been working through virtually. Some more information will be coming forward, and once we have everything together, I will sit down with every board member and go through the ideas that we have and listen to your feedback.
Go ahead, Mr.
Okay. May I follow up on that?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Robinson.
So I just want to be crystal clear. So I think you know, but I just want to be redundant. The problem I'm trying to solve is I don't want people quitting the job that they have, thinking that they have a job at the school district, and then the background check comes back and there's some real or imaginary disqualifier, right? So from what you said, like the video and every instruction needs to basically say, don't quit your day job.
Okay. And
Unless we're going to move the background check up to before we offer the position. And so I don't want to belabor this. I just want to be clear what my concern is.
Yeah, and then the other piece that I just want to share is there's going to have to be some education for our school-based leaders, because they're not going to be getting to the school until everything is completed. So once it's completed, they'll get them. So there may be a delay, so we may get other concerns later on. But yes, we're just going to continue to work through that, Dr. Robinson.
Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. And virtual interviewing and processing is not new for HR. It's been going on for years. How are we building a pool of quality people? I don't know how many we'll need, but as we kind of look at our situation, what's your plans for making sure that you have a quality pool of people ready through the virtual process?
Yes, first of all, the virtual interviews is ready to go. Whether we choose to move forward with it, we really are looking, we have the screening process ready to go. We have the interviewing process ready to go virtually. That's not a problem. We've tested it. We're ready to go. In regards to what we're going to be looking for in the future, that's also a question that Mike Burke and myself have been looking at, because we have 20 million people unemployed. So we might be looking at very, very little, vacancies in the near future. So we started really looking at an environmental scan and how we're going to be able to place quality people in our hard-to-staff schools, hard-to-staff subjects, in different areas. So we've started to look at that. We're starting to develop that plan. But again, we're waiting to see what our budget's going to look like. Class size amendment, will there be some tweaks to that? Yes, Mrs. Andrews.
Go ahead, Mrs. Andrews.
Just to follow up with the bus drivers too, we don't know if people will want to come back. It's going to be a difficult time ahead. And the normal recruitment of having people come in and fill out forms, what's the plan for those non-instructional people, such as your bus drivers, transportation and maintenance folks?
So we really have, let me just back up. We've really been looking at the instructional side, but Gail Williams and the non-instructional side of the house has already built a workforce planning structure prior to the pandemic. And now she's adapting it to what it's going to look like now during a virtual and remote hiring process. So she's working on that. I'll bring more information forward once we have a little bit tighter, more information, a little bit tighter.
All right. Thank you, Dr. LaCava. Is there anybody else had any questions for him? Okay, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Dr. LaCava.
Thank you.
Sir, so at this time, we'll turn it over to our final presentation of the day, which is our Office of Chief of Staff. And this will be done about communications. So Claudia Shea, our wonderful Director of Communications, who has been working very hard like the rest of us. But let me say this too. I think a lot of what she's going to present is around graduations. And as you know, I had to make one of the toughest decisions I had to make, which was to cancel in-person graduations. But I was very clear, and I'll say again for the record, that what we're presenting today is what we 100% know we can do, but we have left that door open for if the social distancing guidelines and things change during late summer or even as late as December. If the board, if it's their will and pleasure, because it certainly will be mine, if all things are safe, we will move forward with that. But at this time, Claudia will be sharing the work to date as it relates to communications in the Chief of Staff's office.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Dr. Fenoy, and good afternoon to Chairman Barbieri and Vice Chair, Mr. Chuck Shaw, and the entire board. It's nice to see your faces again all together. So communications has been very, very busy supporting all of the great work that you just heard about from all of the various departments, and also disseminating all of that information and the resources that is coming out of those departments. It's been a joy to work almost closer than ever with these departments. Even though we're in isolation, I feel like we're more in unity than ever before and more in step with this common cause. Dr. Fenoy and the Chief of Staff, Mr. Ed Tierney, have been very, very deliberate in stressing to the entire communications team the really critical importance of continued, timely, concise communication right now with our staff, with our students, with our parents, with our community overall, because right now, as we know, the situation is constantly changing and there's the risk of a whole lot of amount of confusion if we don't stay on top of this. So we have pretty much changed the way we deliver customer service. And one of the most impactful actions taken by communications was the launch of what you're seeing right here. Now, this is a coronavirus information hotline, which communications launched on March 12th. Now, this is in addition to the helpline that Dr. LaCava told you about just a few moments ago. What you see right there is we have people separating so that they're safe. And they were working from 8 a.m. every day until about 4:30 in the back of the cafeteria, never complaining, always so comforting with whomever called them. We had a lot of support in this effort from transportation, who helped bring us employees to staff this. Also multicultural. We took thousands upon thousands of phone calls over the past 5 weeks, and we were able to answer them in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. And it's really interesting, the evolution of the calls. So this, as I mentioned, started on March 12th, which was the day before Dr. Fenoy made the decision to start closing our schools. So you can imagine how the tone and the questions changed over the 5 weeks. So it went from uneasiness about, will our schools close, to, okay, now our schools are closed. What happens next? How do I educate my child? How do I get a device? And then this is where IT and ET were so busy handing out all those devices. We got calls from parents who were worried about how their children were going to eat. And then food service stepped in, and transportation, getting those meals out there to the point where you heard Ms. Paul mention a little bit ago, 1 million meals as of last week. It's just been tremendous. So even before we launched that, we launched a dedicated website right here. It was the coronavirus website. This was our first one. And this remains active today. And this deals with wellness, emotional support, anything related to the health and welfare of our parents, our staff, our students. There were also lessons to help parents work with their children if they were stressed out about the threat of coronavirus and what it might mean to their family, a brain pop about what coronavirus even is. And it was all just presented in such a way. We worked with Safe Schools and many other departments to make sure that it was very consumer friendly and easy to digest, and nothing was overwhelming. And to this day, we still update it, as you see a little photo right there with Governor DeSantis. He continues to do media updates, video updates every single day, and so that's replaced daily. Now from there, we launched this website, which is our distance learning website. And I know Mr. Barbieri asked me at one point, why do you have these two websites? And the reason why is we want everything to be as simple as possible for everyone. Okay, now we've kind of moved past most of the coronavirus information, the health information, but we wanted parents who are now home with their children, as their children are getting their distance learning instruction, to have a very easy to navigate, one-stop shopping place for all of their questions. So as you see on there, you click into the Google Classroom. Students who want to click into the portal are able to do it there. There's also information here about if you want free tutoring. We're working with the local libraries with that. We have ESC information. We have the TV schedule, how you can watch all of your programs on TV throughout the day. The TV schedule runs from 8:55 every day. That's where we start pre-K instruction, and goes all the way to 4:30 every day. And that usually ends with the secondary. But that's been very, very successful and very popular. And we also made sure we were very deliberate in making sure that the TV programming that you see is streamed live for people who don't have DirecTV. It's on Comcast for people who use Comcast and have basic cable. Channel 12 really stepped up for us and gave us one of their channels, 12.2, for people who have a TV they plug into the wall and they just use their rabbit ears. And of course, we have our partners with AT&T Uverse, and they also are providing our programming every day. So that's just been very, very successful. Both of these web pages have also been, as I mentioned, available in multiple languages. They're not just, you click a button and it translates. Our translators have actually gone through and have translated everything, and they've modified their individual websites to maybe be more relevant to different members of our community and their specific questions. So a lot of this information is based on the questions that we're getting, whether it be via our phone calls or whether it be through social media or on our website. So we're trying to be really deliberate and really impactful right there. These two sites, it's just astonishing to me. Since they both launched, they've had more than 1 million hits. So people are definitely coming to us for information, and that makes me feel good. I've been asked by a lot of people throughout the country about these sites and how we set them up and how we made decisions on content. The decisions on content was made by collaborating with people throughout our district. What was most important? Okay, now this brings us to one of the headlines Dr. Fenoy mentioned when he was addressing the whole idea of virtual graduations. Virtual graduations will be running from May 26th through June 5th. What we're doing is we're broadcasting all of these graduations on TV. Also, they'll be streaming live so people can watch that way. And they all start after 5 p.m., including the ones on Saturdays, just to keep it consistent. And our thought process there was, well, first of all, we still have the classroom scheduling going on throughout the day, and that ends at about 4:30, as I mentioned. And this way at 5 o'clock, we can start clean with our graduations. We've allotted about an hour and a half for each graduation. We have a little bit of wiggle room in there. On that website, you'll also see how you can watch. It's palmbeachschools.org/graduation, easy to remember. And on that site, you'll also find out how to have a watch party. So how this will work is if up to 250 people want to start their own site, kind of like we're doing right now, but have 250 of their closest friends and family members, they can all watch together and they can see reactions as a name is called, as a speech is read. So it is the next best thing to being there. So how does a virtual graduation look? If we go to the next slide, I'll give you an idea. Now, every graduation, and we have more than 30 graduations, so it's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. So each graduation will be unique. So it's not a cookie cutter, but there is a general rundown. And just like traditional graduations, in every graduation, you'll be hearing from that school's principal. You'll be hearing from that school's valedictorian, salutatorian. You'll be hearing from the superintendent. You'll also be hearing from our board members. You all will be represented in this as well. We are also using photos from yearbooks. So we have lifestyle photos in there, so kids will see that. And we've also asked each school to create, if they haven't already, a video which is pretty much like a year in review, just the highlights of life at their school over the school year, something that they can all reflect back on. So we're trying to make it as fun as possible. Those schools that want to give us their own national anthem that they might have recorded their band playing, that's great. If they want to do their own pledge, that's great too. So we are just, again, making them all look unique and trying to make every school and every student feel special, even though this isn't as great as being there in person. It's the next best thing. So children will still have their names called just like they do at regular traditional graduations. In fact, we've asked every school to have the person who would have been reading the names record the names. And then what we're doing